All right, so we're now recording the webinar. And then I'm going to share my screen. And so I just want a couple of you to write into that chat box if you can see my screen and you can still hear me. So now I should be showing you the Yewno Discover interface. Let me know if you have any issues seeing that. All right. Great, okay. Awesome, people can see, people can hear, that's wonderful. All right, thanks very, very much. All right, so thanks everyone for joining us this morning. My name is Grace Scott. I'm the product manager for education here at Yewno, and I have been coordinating the technical setup as well as the community outreach for Santa Clara County Libraries. And as some of you are familiar, Santa Clara has signed on for a subscription to Yewno Discover. And what I'm going to be doing today is just an in-depth introduction and demo of what our product does. And then I'll be able to open it up for questions and answers for all of you to be able to ask any burning questions you might have. Just a note to please submit those questions to that chat box, either at the top or the bottom of your webinar control panel. So I just want to give you guys a quick, I guess, contextual introduction to what Yewno Discover is. So Yewno Discover is a very, very different technology. And so in that sense, it is not a traditional library search, meaning we're not a known item searching tool. So you can't exactly use Yewno to type in an ISBN or an author's name or, a full query string of titles. So really what we're trying to get at is reframing your patron's research process around conceptual searching. So in that sense, we are not keyword searching, we're not node item searching, but we are a concept-based search. And what our technology does is that we actually read full text academic content. So this comes from academic journals, ebooks, dissertations, some online web content as well. So both structured and unstructured data. And our algorithm can actually extract concepts and relationships semantically using our technology from this type of content. And then what our system does with those concepts and relationships is that we visualize it using a knowledge graph technology. So that's what you're going to see on the right-hand side of my screen here. So you can actually add concepts to our knowledge map to be able to understand how different things are connected and to maybe uncover things that you didn't necessarily know you didn't know. So a couple of use cases that work really well for Yewno Discover are mainly for including knowledge discovery and serendipitous discovery. So again, identifying those items that you didn't necessarily know were related to one another, and really being able to frame your research and your understanding of concepts and relationships in a new way. A couple other use cases, we see a lot of high school students using Yewno Discover to get, I guess, sort of a brainstorming machine started for a project or paper that they might be working on. We also see people entering consumer health queries into Yewno Discover to see, maybe what are the connections between sleep and memory or sleep and brain, all of these different types of things. So I'm going to jump into this demo, and I'll be able to go through each different set of our functionality to show you really what our graph does and really show you how different it is from that existing library technology. And so I should also note that Yewno Discover is not a replacement to your existing library search tools or your library search ecosystem. So we actually act as a complement. So we can be embedded as a part of your results set. And I'll actually show you how Santa Clara has done that within your existing EDS ecosystem. So first off, I'm going to sign in to my Yewno account. And what this does is that this allows your patrons or your users to actually, they sign in with a free Yewno account, and it allows them to save and export their research steps for later. So they can take pictures of their maps to export to Google Docs. They can download documents into a CSV or a RIS format. So that's really what this icon up here does. So it just allows them to create a new Yewno account. And this just matches up their research journey with their user ID. So I'm going to click on this, and it's just going to port you over to our authentication system. And you're just going to press OK. And then I'm just going to show you what it looks like if you're a new user. So you'll get these different sign-in options. You can sign in with Google or with Facebook, or you can create a free Yewno account this way as well, just with an email and password. We see the majority of our users using Google. So I'm just selected Google here, and I'm going to choose my account. And now I'm signed in. So that avatar has changed from black to blue, recognizing that I've signed in with my Yewno account, and now I can get started with my searching. So Yewno Discover is outfitted with a context panel on the left-hand side. And so this is where you're going to do the majority of your filtering as well as your concept searching. On the right-hand side is where it's outfitted with our knowledge map. So that's where you can really dive deeper into that interactive map exploration. So I noted that Yewno's technology can extract concepts and relationships. So we can actually identify semantically different concepts that can be extracted from these different types of documents. And so these concepts might exist in different contextual areas. So in this case, I'm going to start typing in a concept that I know about, social media. And you can see that our system is actually suggesting concepts that are not just related to social media, but they might be related to social media marketing and social media bubble. So they have all these different topics associated with the concepts as well. So you can actually start to narrow your search right from the onset in Yewno Discover. So I think in terms of what I'm most interested in and what's most relevant to me, I'm going to choose social media, which has topic models of web and social media / social media. So I think this is really what I'm looking for. So I'm going to add it to my map, and you're going to see it expand on the right-hand side. So here we have the interactive knowledge map experience. And what I really like about what our technology is doing here is that it's actually providing you with additional secondary concepts that are directly related to your original search query. So I searched for social media, but you can see that there are quite a few related concepts or secondary concepts around the map. So you have different things like social media marketing, social impact of YouTube, and radical media. And all these, I guess, yellow or orange highlighted lines are showing you different direct relationships to other items in your map. So you can actually start to click and interact with the knowledge map to learn more about how your concept is constructed and how it's related to other things you might be interested in. And so Yewno is essentially identifying for you and for your patrons different ways to slice and dice their research. So I've clicked on radical media, and we're back in the context panel on the left here. And this is where you can actually gain more information about your concept. So you have an overview with a definition. You also can view related concepts that are also semantically related based on our documents. And you can also click on documents over here. So I'm just going to hold off on documents for now. So I'm going to just add a couple more things to my map. So if I wanted to actually derive a new relationship, or maybe I'm just really curious about how social media may be related to something else I'm interested in. So I could be a student. I could be someone who's just come into the library and is just kind of a curious lifelong learner, and I want to see how different things that I know about may or may not be related. So I'm going to go back to my search here. So I'm just going to click on the magnifying glass, and I'm going to add brain. So this is definitely most helpful for me because it talks about brain in the context of medicine and neuroscience. And my map is going to re-render on the right, and it's going to generate a new map here. So what I've done is essentially just derived a relationship between social media and brain. And so I can click on this particular relationship here, and this is essentially identifying and describing the relationship between these two primary concepts. So you can see that there are other related concepts over here, such as empathy, sex differences in psychology, and adolescence. And our documents are actually describing this particular relationship as well, using that semantic identification technology. So all of the different snippets or results that we like to call them come up on the right-hand side. So I've opened my Documents tab from left to right, and here is where I can actually get access to these documents to explore for later. So I can click into this document here. I can see if this is helpful for my research, and then I can click into this particular interlibrary loan flow. But I think, yeah, I want to go back over here so I can show you guys what it looks like in your instance at Santa Clara. So I'm just going to re-add these things really quickly. Bear with me. So now I'm clicking on the relationship just to get those documents back again. Here we go. So I can actually click on this relationship here, and we've connected directly into your EDS link resolver. So when I identify this particular snippet, or what Yewno defines as a piece of text that most strongly relates to your relationship or to your concept, I can click on it and see if it's available at the library. If my internet decides to work, there we go. So here we have your EDS link resolver with the results. So the full text finder results have identified that you can actually find this article in full text from EBSCOhost Smart Links. So you can actually click here to further search to see if this particular document is available, which it is here. So your patrons can get direct full text access for the things that you subscribe to. But if there's no full text online, you can actually request through an interlibrary loan. And so your patrons can essentially just copy and paste all of the relevant metadata over to your full text interlibrary loan flow as well. So this just allows us to be able to connect your patrons back into the library should you guys actually subscribe to some of this content. And so I'm just going to click back to go to the document list again. And I want to highlight a couple of things here. So we have this availability filter. And so what the availability filter does, it does two things. So it actually identifies your electronic resources that Santa Clara subscribes to. So what we do is that we actually ingest the full text of your EDS e-resources download. So all of that e-content, all of those e-resources, Yewno can read and then maps it against Yewno's content set. So that overlap between your subscribed holdings and our subscribed holdings, we can display in this electronic filter here. So you have two items that directly relate to social media and brain. Don't worry, there's definitely a lot more, but we've narrowed down into this one particular relationship. So you'll see for some other searches that I'll do, there's going to be more results as well. The second availability filter we have is what Yewno calls the free to read filter. And the best way that I like to position this as is essentially an open access filter. So all of the content that Yewno is providing free of charge and essentially open source is what is getting categorized as this free to read filter. So some of the things that are included in this free to read filter are open repositories like University of Michigan's Deep Blue. We have Harvard Dash, which is a dissertation repository. We have OECD, and we have Directory of Open Access Journals, DOAJ, and many, many more. So we're providing all of this additional free access content to you guys as well, and to your patrons as well, in addition to your subscribed resources. So what we've actually done specifically for Santa Clara is that we've defaulted these two filters, these two availability filters for your patrons, so that they're guaranteed to gain access to the full text of the items that are presented in Yewno Discover. So you can actually deselect any of these filters, and you can see some of the other things that Yewno can provide, but it's really up to Santa Clara and up to the library in particular, whether or not you guys subscribe to that content. It will direct whether or not the user gets access to that content. So you can actually further filter your documents here by document type. So it might be an article, it might be an ebook, it might be reference. There's also topics that you can, that you can filter by as well. So if you really want to hone in on maybe say mathematics, the topic of mathematics, and how that particular context can be applied to social media and brain, you can select this filter and it's going to re-render your document list on the right here. So all of these things have some sort of internal topic model that Yewno has assigned based on what we've read. You can actually say, okay, so we're talking about the relationship between social media and brain in all of these documents, and that's what our system has identified semantically. But if I actually want to see how social media and brain and that relationship also relates to the overarching topic of mathematics, I can filter by that as well. So you're really able to dive a little bit deeper and really refine your search even further to something that you might be really interested in. And then down here, you can filter by publication date. So all you have to do is just enter your 4-digit year code, and then it'll re-render your document list on the right-hand side as well, based on the years that you choose. And then clearing filters is really just as easy as clicking this button up here, and then it's going to reset my results. So there we go. So I want to click perhaps on back to Knowledge Map, and I'm going to inspect social media. So here we go. So you'll actually see that there are quite a few result sets for some of those like larger overall concepts that we created as well. So since we have these two availability filters, excuse me, as soon as we have these availability filters defaulted, you can click on any of these documents, and then you can actually view the snippet here. You can also view related snippets from the same title that Yewno has identified as semantically relevant to your concept of social media. And there's also some document information or metadata available to you as well. And so you can click through, find full text at the library. And in the case that you don't actually have enough metadata that's being sent over to the link resolver, there will be some options to browse for the article in these different journals or in these different databases. And again, you can actually click through to WorldCat in the event if the user wants to request an item through ILL as well. And so if you do have direct access to the article, the link will essentially read, find this article in full text from whatever journal is being sent from. So again, we do offer that connection directly back to Santa Clara as well. So now I'm going to go back to my map, and I'm actually going to clear my map and just start a new search. So I can either exit or cross out these concepts here, or I can click on the button to clear my knowledge map and start a new search. So that's what I've done here, and then I'm going to add a couple of different things. And so this might be for the patron that is really curious about a particular consumer health query. Perhaps they haven't been sleeping well, or they're really stressed out at work, and they come into the library to see if maybe some of these things might be correlated somehow, and if there's actual, I guess, updated materials about this particular thing. So I'm just going to quickly add your filter here just so that you can see what it looks like for you guys. And now I'm going to actually add brain again. And I'm going to add sleep because I haven't been sleeping well. Here we go. Oops. And now I'm also going to add stress. And so one thing that I do want to note here is that when I've typed in my particular query of stress or my concept of stress, Yewno's technology can actually identify the different contextual planes in which the concept of stress can exist. Because we know that stress might mean that it's coming from, like a psychological stress, like I'm feeling stressed out at work, I'm feeling stressed out with my family or something like that. But, stress can actually exist in biology. And I'm going to just read this definition here, but biological stress in terms of an organic response to a particular environment. Or you have stress that exists in the context of linguistics. So this is what Yewno's technology is really, really good at. So we can actually identify, these different contexts in which stress can exist. So we can help your users further refine their search as they continue. So I'm going to add stress specific to psychological stress. So now I've added 3 concepts to my map, and you can see that there are a lot of direct relationships as well as related concepts that have been added to my map. So here we go. So there's like quite a bit of stuff going on here. So we can see that there are direct relationships that are being derived between brain and sleep, brain and stress, as well as stress and sleep. So if I wanted to just inspect that, I can look at all of the related concepts here. Again, I can look at documents that are talking about this particular relationship. But say I'm really interested in finding those indirect connections. So, finding things that you didn't necessarily know you didn't know. So all of these highlighted items here are showing the direct connections. So I've actually clicked on brain. I'm hovering over brain here. You can see that those yellow lines are showing how these things are connected. But I want to control the density because I think there's just a lot going on in my map and I want to reduce the amount of concepts I'm seeing. So when you click on a primary concept, so brain, sleep, or stress psychological, I can actually change the density by shrinking this bar on the right-hand side. So I'm really shrinking this really, really, really small. There we go. And you can see that the amount of concepts has actually reduced. So I'm just showing you the really, really strongly related concepts based on what our system has identified. So now I'm going to do the same for sleep. So there's a lot of concepts related to sleep. You can see that it's displaying this amount of concepts. I'm going to shrink it again. So I'm seeing less things on my map here. And then one more time with stress. There we go. So here I've really reduced my map to essentially, a pretty bare bones map. And these are the items, or these are the concepts that Yewno has specifically identified as being most strongly related to those primary concepts. So for brain, you can see that these concepts here, the secondary concepts in particular, rapid eye movement, as well as nervous system and neuroscience and sleep, these are all very strongly related. And for sleep, insomnia is also really strongly related. But what happens if I actually want to change the relevancy and see things that are less directly connected? So I've selected my primary concept of brain again, and I can actually grab this, I can actually grab the entire bar and move it, if it allows me to. All right, we're gonna try that again, folks. So I just grabbed it in the middle and I'm just dragging it all the way down to the bottom. So I've adjusted the relevancy here. And you can see that some of my concepts have changed as indicated by my primary concept, as well as by my primary concept that I've changed here. So I'm also going to change sleep. And I'm just going to adjust the relevancy as well. And so you can see different things that have come up here, like sleep deprivation and narcolepsy and all this other kind of stuff. So I can really start to identify the things that are less strongly related. And this might pose to be a really interesting research starting point for those of your patrons who want a better understanding of maybe how things aren't strongly connected. And so that's what Yewno's technology is doing here. And another thing that we can do is actually generate indirect relationships from things that are already on our map. So I've selected the Select Multiple Concepts button here just by clicking this graph icon on the right. And so you can see that I can actually generate a relationship between two concepts already on my map. And I can also create a whole new knowledge map for up to 8 concepts. So I already kind of know that my primary concepts of brain, sleep, and psychological stress are all directly related based on our content or based on our documents we've read. But what if I actually want to see if maybe stress and biology is related to cognitive neuroscience? Because I can kind of see that there's no direct relationship connecting these two things here. So I can actually generate a relationship for these two secondary concepts on my map, and I'll generate a whole new layer based on what I've selected. So this is actually pretty neat. So I didn't think that stress and biological stress and cognitive neuroscience were directly related based on my map. But when I created that indirect relationship within Yewno Discover, there's actually quite a few things that do relate these things together. So you can see that there's not quite a direct relationship, so that kind of that thick blue line that you were seeing for those other primary concepts, but you can actually start to move your map in a really interesting way, where you can start down at cognitive neuroscience, and then you can start to, I guess, follow the yellow lines here to see how these things are related. So I'm going to follow it up to prefrontal cortex. So I know that there's a direct relationship here. I can actually, click on it. There's some other things I can click on as well, if I can. There we go. And then I can actually click. I can see that prefrontal cortex is also directly related to stress biology. So I've actually just gone from my kind of primary concept, or my secondary concept that's been promoted to a primary concept. And then the secondary concept of prefrontal cortex is the connecting factor that connects cognitive neuroscience and stress biology. So again, this is a really interesting way for your patrons to frame their research experience, because they may not know that cognitive neuroscience and stress biology are directly related, but Yewno can show them that they can be indirectly connected based on other documents that we've read and based on these other concepts that we've extracted. So that's kind of the difference between the primary relationship or like the derived relationship versus these indirect relationships that you can create using this selection mode tool here. So what if I want to go back to my original map? All I have to do is click on this graph layers icon, and you can see that my original map is up here. The map I've just created down here, and they'll, if you do wind up creating more indirect relationships, they'll follow suit underneath that first one there. So I can just click on this layer to restore my original map. So what happens now when I actually want to export my research journey or take pictures of my map to save for later, maybe for an outline, maybe for a project I'm working on, something like that. So I've clicked on that camera icon. You can see that my graph snapshot, I've just taken a picture of this, and it's actually saved over in my research journey over here. So I've clicked on the research journey steps, or this little icon on the left, and you can see essentially all of your research items that you've inspected, or that you've taken pictures of, or documents that you've explored. So this is actually a really great tool to start to generate that outline, or generate a lit review list, or a bibliography for a project that you might be exploring, or just for your own personal use to keep on hand to share with others as well. So I can actually select all of my items that I'm interested in. So I've chosen my knowledge graph. I've also chosen some of my relationships and my concepts, and I can choose to export to Google Docs. Because I've signed in with my Google account, I can directly export back to that Google account I signed up with. So here we go. I'm going to choose the one I signed in with. And here is my Yewno research export that pops up in a new tab with the account I signed in with. So I have my knowledge map here as well. And we do see a lot of high school students using these in different research papers and presentations as well, to show the different connections between concepts or things that they might be talking about in school. So we've actually had some examples of high school students connecting different parabolic equations to different things that they're interested in, like basketball. We also have students using the framework of the French Revolution and how it connects directly to something like feminism or women in the French Revolution. And so showing these connections is actually a very interesting and engaging visual point for those students to use. And so you also have different things that you've inspected, like your concepts, as well as any documents that you wanted to export as well. And so I'm just back in my map. And so I will note that if you do want to export documents, we can export documents to RIS or CSV data format. The reason why you can't export a map to RIS or CSV is because that's an image and it has to go over to Google Docs. So if you do want to take a picture of your map within the application itself, you could just take that picture here and make sure to export it to your Google account. Another feature that helps people along in their research is that if they find anything interesting, they can actually take notes about it. So since I'm logged in, we're able to actually match up any notes you take and save them automatically and match them to your user ID that you've created. So I'm just going to type in notes for today. And I can exit out of this, and it's going to save on the right-hand side here. Or sorry, this is the left-hand side. Yes, it's going to save on the left-hand side. And you can go back and reference these notes at any moment when you're signed in. So now I'm just going to go back to my search. Just a couple of other things you guys should note. This is mainly just zoom in and zoom out features if I want to zoom into a particular area, especially when there are there's a lot of concepts, there's a very high density of concepts, and you want to narrow down or really focus in on something. You can use the zoom in, zoom out. We're also compatible with your mouse as well, which I'm doing now. You can zoom out and zoom in. You can recenter your graph here. Clear your knowledge map here if you want to start over. And then we have options to change the user interface language, but I don't foresee you guys needing that for the time being. We also have connections back to Yewno's Help Center page, so that has all of our FAQ. We can actually put you, direct you to our YouTube channel with different tutorial videos as well, should you have any questions. And what Santa Clara has done is that we've actually integrated a help page. So when you click on this link, you can actually go back to the Contact Us page at Santa Clara, should any of your patrons want to get feedback about Yewno Discover in particular. And again, we love getting feedback from our different libraries, as well as our users, just to get a better understanding of how we can always improve and iterate our product as well. And then here's just a connection to Yewno's homepage if you want to learn a little bit more about our technology or our product as well. And so now I'm just going to kind of dive into a little bit of, I guess, some other items that I'd like to cover. So I think we've definitely covered the open access titles, so the different types of electronic resources and subscriptions that you can access through Santa Clara's Discover instance. In terms of when you may not come across items, when you do come across items that might not seem relevant, or you're getting documents that you don't think are necessarily related, please do let us know, because that might mean we might not have content in that area. So there might not be that direct connection that you might be seeing, because what our technology does is that we can derive these direct relationships between primary concepts, but it might be because there are other related documents or there are other related concepts that help define that relationship. But if there's no direct relationship and there's no direct correlation from the documents, it might just mean we don't have access, but we're constantly ingesting new content and new data on a daily basis and making that available through our product to make sure that you guys have a good understanding of how these things are related. And so if there's a particular document that Santa Clara might not have, but Yewno does have, all you have to do, so I'm just deselecting these. So when these are deselected, this might actually mean, because I'll start over. So what Yewno's technology does is that we don't have full license to actually show all of these documents that we get from our content providers and our different content aggregators. So we actually can show you, this is the limit of what we can show you from the snippet that we've semantically extracted from the entire document. But say Santa Clara doesn't have access to this particular article or this particular book. So all you have to do is that you can actually copy and paste the title as well as some of the document information, and you can just conduct your search in your existing EDS system to see, if you can request it through an ILL or through a different database that you might have. And so, in terms of the coverage, you guys do have access to a subset of Yewno's larger content set. So that's what I was showing you here with the availability filters. So when you select electronic or when free to read is selected, this is a smaller subset of Yewno's larger content base. So this is limiting it to what Santa Clara has access to. So this essentially is just making it easier for your patrons and for you to get access to the full text. And so with that, I actually just want to show you how Yewno exists within the Santa Clara ecosystem. So I'm just going to move my screen over here a little bit, and I think I started over here. So we've, Laura and some of your team members have actually done a really nice job of integrating Yewno Discover into your existing EDS ecosystem. So we actually come up as a result for your patrons. So I can type in my search here. So I'm typing in robotics into the research by category. So we're in the online research section of your page. And then I can click on search. And here we have all of the results. So you get your traditional set of results that EDS will give you. You have all of your documents. You definitely have some related images as well. But if you scroll down, we've actually embedded Yewno Discover as a result. So for your patrons that want that engaging visual entry and they want to explore the concepts or the relationships further, they can use Yewno as that starting point from this EDS results page. So all you have to do is you can hover over any of these related concepts. And essentially what this is it's a mini knowledge map. So it's a smaller version of what you'll get in the full product. And you can click on it directly. So it's fully interactive, which is really cool. It has all the images. And you click on it, you'll be prompted to sign in with your easy proxy. It's your login, I believe it's your library card and your password or your PIN, and then you'll be directed to Yewno Discover. And that way you'll be able to get access. And it's super easy just to jump over from the results to the graph itself. And that's a really great way, and we definitely see a huge uptick in usage when patrons are given access to this widget itself, which is really great. I think I've covered most everything. I did want to note that if you guys do have any feedback about Yewno Discover, or if you ever come across any issues, I believe Laura will be the point of contact, and then she'll be able to translate any feedback over to me via email as well, so that we can stay in constant contact about what we can do better, what we can improve, as well as helping you guys better understand what our product does. And then I think she'll be in touch with you in terms of when this will be going live for your patrons and for your library community. I know that you guys are planning on integrating into a couple different places within the library website as well. So hopefully you guys will see Yewno in a couple places here as well. And then in terms of gaining access to Yewno Discover, so Yewno is essentially accessible by any Santa Clara IP range. So we have enabled all of the IP ranges for all of the different Santa Clara County libraries, so all the different locations. And if you are a remote access user, all you have to do is just log in using your log in using your PIN and your library card through the Discover proxy. So you can just do that really quickly, and then you'll be able to get that remote access to Discover as well. So I've been talking for quite a bit. So what I will do is that I'll finally open it up for some questions from you all. So if you do have any questions, I'm going to keep everyone on mute just so that we're not talking over one another. But please write in your questions using that chat box. It's either at the top or the bottom of your webinar control panel, depending on how it's configured. And I will do my best to answer questions within, I guess, the last 10 or 15 minutes that we have. But I just want to say thanks very much for joining me. And I hope that this was helpful. Okay, I'm getting a couple of questions here. Okay, can I go back and show how to relate the first two concepts of social media and brain? Okay, let me just pull up, 1 second, just let me pull up my tab here. So first, I'm gonna add my primary concept. So I've typed in social media, and I've added it to my map. And then if I want to add any additional primary concept to see if there's a derived relationship, I go back to the magnifying glass, the search icon here, click on that, I'm back to the search bar, and then I can add brain, my second primary concept. And then I have a relationship I have a relationship that's been derived. So I can click on that. I can see other related concepts that connect these two primary concepts. And then I can see the documents on which the relationship between social media and brain have been derived. So here I have 17 results here. And this is mainly because we've defaulted to both the free to read as well as Santa Clara's electronic access resources. But if you do want to see other things outside of that, you can just deselect these filters as well. So you have, I guess, a little bit more, probably not a whole lot more, that Yewno can provide as well. And you can change the document types, all these different filters as well. So hopefully that helps answer that question. I have another question about can we sort by date? So for documents, so I'm just going to use social media here. You can apply a date filter in particular. So if you go to the document filter section on the left, you can choose your date. So I've typed in 2016, and then I'm going to type in 2018 to see things from the last couple of years. And I've just entered and then clicked on the outside of this box here. And then it's re-rendered my document list based on these particular dates. So Yewno is very different in the sense that the results are not citation ranked, and they're not ranked by author. They're not ranked by date as well. They're ranked by semantic strength. So Yewno has essentially identified the strongest pieces of text out of, say, a 200 or 300 page book, or like a 20-page article, and which is not the abstract, it's not the conclusion. It might be on page 6 out of a 21-page article that talks about the particular relationship or the particular concept, in this case, of social media. So all of our results here are ranked by semantic relevancy. So they're not ranked by date, they're not ranked by citation, and this really allows for those unbiased results to be surfaced for patrons to get a good understanding of how these things are connected. No problem. Good questions, guys. Any other questions? I did want to note that we also have a different domain here. So if you actually want to search in a particular document set, so we have everything defaulted to academic, since that's the majority of the content that we have. However, if you want to search within, the United States federal document base, we've actually ingested these open access sources from the U.S. Government Publishing Office, from the U.S. Patent Office, ERIC articles, all of these other really great government resources. You can conduct the same search just using a completely different content set. And so in theory, all of these things are open access as well. So if you have someone who's particularly interested in law or, connections in that governmental or legal sense, you can use this as well. And that's a great resource to just learn about local law or federal law as well. Okay, another good question about relationships and how they're derived. Are the semantic relationships derived only from Santa Clara accessible docs, or all of the docs you find on the web? So the graph and the relationships and the concepts, so everything within Yewno's universe is from our entire content set. So it's not just Santa Clara's content, it's all of Yewno's content from academic publishers, aggregators, as well as other things as well. And so I'm getting another question about, how do we go about sort of the serendipitous searching? So really what Yewno's kind of good at as well is that we can actually uncover things that you didn't necessarily know you didn't know. So say I wanted to type in, say, Supreme Court. I just want to learn a little bit more about it. I can click on it, and I can actually start to look at some of the different secondary connections. So this is kind of cool to me. So I'm interested in China, but I didn't necessarily know that law of the People's Republic of China would come up with the concept of Supreme Court, because we know that Supreme Court, we're probably thinking it from a United States or a federal perspective that we're familiar with. But we actually can see that Supreme Court obviously exists in a couple of different regional areas as well. So I've clicked on this, and I can gain a little bit more information from my definition, and I can actually start to expand my concept. So if I find something on my map that's really interesting, that I want to explore more about, I don't actually have to go to the search icon here and add another one. I can expand it directly from my map by clicking that button. And so now I've actually, created this relationship between Supreme Court and law of the People's Republic of China, and say, oh, now I'm kind of started on this like serendipitous searching, and I want to add maybe censorship and see how this factors into this. So again, what Yewno is doing is that I don't necessarily know what I'm looking for here. Like I started with Supreme Court, and then I got into China, and then I got into censorship. So that's how we're different, and that's how we're framing the research experience more differently. Because when you are to type in something like Supreme Court, you know, in a system like EDS or in a traditional library search environment, you're going to get pages and pages of document results. You're not going to get this visual exploration where you can further refine the things you're looking for before you search it in a place like EDS. And so that's where you can really start this idea of serendipitous searching and go forward, you know, to search for, you know, more specific things in that keyword-based search in those different systems. So this is just really neat for me, and hopefully it proves to be a really interesting and new, engaging way for you and your patrons to start to frame search a little bit differently. So I'm getting a question about, does Yewno prioritize topics to help users find the more important ones? So no, everything we do is unbiased, both the concepts, documents, and our topic models. It's all completely based on what those different, those semantic identities are from our content set. So no, everything is unbiased. And it's really dependent on what you're typing in your search and what comes up in those search results as well. And so, you know, what users can actually gain from that experience of, you know, searching for these particular things is that they can really start to refine their search. So they've added these 3 things, but perhaps, you know, there's some documents that, you know, connect their relationships as well. So I don't necessarily see it as falling down the rabbit hole. I actually see it as more of an exploratory search, which then they can apply to a traditional search system. And if they really want to look at specific documents, they can actually do, they can actually filter, I guess, even further by these different topics that they might be interested in. So they can further refine their search so they're not looking at, you know, thousands of pages of results like you would in a traditional search as well. So I've already narrowed it down to about 700 results. And that way, you know, the user has a better idea of what to be looking for. And so Laura's asked me to just add a more recent topic. So again, we don't really have, you know, up-to-date news, but it's really interesting to see how someone or a figure like Brett Kavanaugh can be related to some of these other items that I've connected here. So I've connected him to the Supreme Court, obviously, and then we have other things like Supreme Court of the United States, I guess a couple of different law cases as well, and different judges. You can also start to look into different documents that might be helpful as well. And so what Yewno does is that it actually provides you with some other concepts that you didn't necessarily know that you could relate between the Supreme Court and Brett Kavanaugh. Obviously, you know, a little bit different than what we would see in today's news. But it provides a really interesting starting point for, say, you know, students to develop a hypothesis or a thesis statement for a paper, or it just, you know, provides a really interesting conversation starter for other patrons, and say, hey, did you know that that I guess this Mancusi versus De Forte case somehow is connected to the Supreme Court and Brett Kavanaugh? So again, a really cool way to start to frame a search. And then if you kind of move over here, you can see other things that he perhaps is connected to, which is really, really neat. right, so it kind of looks like the questions are winding down. So if there are any last minute ones, please feel free to voice them now. If not, thank you so much to all of you for joining us or joining me this morning. I hope this was really helpful, and I really hope that you guys have a better understanding of how Yewno Discover works, how our technology works, how we're best used and how we're best framed, and how we've already embedded with different configurations with the Santa Clara County Library System. And so I wish you all the best with testing it out. And if you do have any questions or any feedback, please direct them to Laura and Allison, and they'll obviously get in touch with me. But again, thank you. And if you do want a copy of the recording, I'll obviously make sure to send a link to Laura, and then she'll distribute it as necessary. So thanks again, everyone, and have a really, really wonderful day.